If the Tennessee Titans want to fire Ran Carthon, they might as well just clean house. I'll explain why on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland, Titans fans. Today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's show, I'm going to talk about why the Titans should just clean house if they want to fire Ran Carthon, explain why I don't think they should fire anyone anyways, and talk about what action I think the Titans would take if they did fire Ran Carthon. Before we get into all of it, I do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. And if you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one, because it's about to be an insane offseason for the Tennessee Titans. And I'm going to be covering all the news every day, all off season long, getting you guys ready to go for when next season eventually does roll around. But with that being said, with that in mind, we got to start with the job status of Ran Carthon, because first and foremost, before I explain why I think the Titans should absolutely just clean house in general with everybody if they intend to fire Ran Carthon, but how we got here, obviously the Titans had a bad season. Obviously, since Ran Carthon has taken over as general manager, the Titans have gotten worse in their 2 seasons with him at GM. Now, that first season with Mike Vrabel, was he truly the general manager like we would think of? That's up for debate, but regardless, the stink is on his name. 2 seasons in a row, the Titans have gotten worse with Ran Carthon at general manager, and we've gotten reports over the last few days, last weekend, the end of last week, saying that, Ran Carthon may be fired. We got multiple reports from 2 different sources hinting at that possibility. Adam Schefter hinted at that on Sunday in ESPN's pregame shows. So there is some reason to believe that Ran Carthon could be fired. Now, as of my recording this, it's about 5 p.m. Eastern time on Monday afternoon. Ran Carthon has not been fired. With that, Brian Callahan has already spoken a press conference on Monday, and still, to this point, Ran Carthon has not been fired. But that does not mean that Ran Carthon still may not be fired later this week. After you hear this, it could happen late on Monday night after this has been recorded. And of course, as always, I'll jump on for a bonus episode to break down the big news if it happens. But here's my thing. There's no way in the world that the Tennessee Titans can fire Ran Carthon and keep Brian Callahan. It just does not make any sense whatsoever. And here's why. Ran Carthon is the one who picked Brian Callahan. When the Titans hired Brian Callahan at that opening press conference, it was nothing but, I want to work with Ran. When I met with Ran, it felt a natural connection. Me and Ran have a natural chemistry. We want to work in collaboration. I want to work with Ran Carthon. The whole reason that Brian Callahan was hired is because him and Ran Carthon worked so well together. That was the entire point. The collaboration, we're going to hunt together, right? We're going to hunt together. The worst thing that the Tennessee Titans could do is fire their general manager and then hire a new general manager and force that general manager to take Brian Callahan. Now, I've saw some people say, well, you hire the new general manager and you give him the choice whether to keep Brian Callahan or not. Okay, well, here's the problem with that. Ran Carthon hasn't even been fired yet. When you fire Ran Carthon, then you have to go through the process of hiring a new general manager. You have to go through the interview process. You have to check certain boxes. You have to do certain things. And by the time that you get done with doing those things and you actually hire a general manager, now that general manager has to meet with Brian Callahan. Hey, Brian, how do you see this? Hey, Brian, how do you see that? Do we agree? Do I want to keep him around? And then let's say the general manager decides, you know what? I don't want Brian Callahan. Well, now you have to start the process of hiring a new head coach. You have to check those same boxes. You have to go through initial interviews. You have to go through second interviews. You have to go through virtual interviews. You have to have all those meetings with the new general manager. And by the time that you get through all of that, which head coaching candidates are even still available? Are they the top crop? Probably not. Those guys are probably going to be hired already. Or if they're not hired already, because let's say it's Ben Johnson with the Lions and they go to the Super Bowl and you can't technically hire them. Don't you think that those coaches have already had their interviews with the teams that they're interested in? Don't you think that those coaches, even if they do go far in the playoffs and can't officially be hired, already know that they're going to the team that they're going to? You put yourself so far behind in the hiring head coach process that it does not make any sense whatsoever. If you are going to fire Ran Carthon, fire everyone, because Ran Carthon picked the head coach. Ran Carthon picked the quarterback. Ran Carthon signed all the free agents. Ran Carthon drafted all the players. And he did that in mind of Brian Callahan, who he collaborated with on all of those moves. It does not make any sense to fire Ran Carthon and keep Brian Callahan around. So if you're going to make the change, if you're going to abandon ship on this version of the Tennessee Titans, if you've had it, then you have to clean house entirely. You can't leave any lingering remnants behind. To me, I would compare it to like a cinematic universe, like DC right now. They're saying it's a full reboot, but you still have the same Peacemaker, and you still have the same Harley Quinn, and you still have Amanda Waller from the previous version. It's only going to confuse the message. That was really, really nerdy. So my nerds in the house, shout out to you guys who know what I'm talking about here. But the point is, you can't let anything linger. If you want to start fresh, then start fresh. You cannot fire Ran Carthon and keep Brian Callahan around. It does not make any sense whatsoever. Now, I'm going to tell you why. Because of that, I don't want to see anybody fired. Because if you're going to fire somebody, it doesn't make sense for it to be Ran Carthon out of all people. So I'll explain why now. Do want to let you guys know, though, that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's playoff time. If you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action, and that's where Prize Picks comes in. If you love football and you want a chance to win real money while watching the games, Prize Picks is the place for you. It's the best way to turn your sports opinion into cash with daily fantasy player projections. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on player stats like passing yards or rushing touchdowns. For a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money, you can make your picks in 60 seconds or less. And whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or you want to cash out quickly, Prize Picks has you covered. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, it's clear that people are loving Prize Picks. I've been playing Prize Picks for a while. It's an absolute blast. Again, all you got to do is pick more or less. You could look at like Josh Allen, more than 230 passing yards, or Saquon Barkley for more than one touchdown. They have weekly promos like Taco Tuesday to add even more value to your lineups. Here's a special offer for Locked On Titans listeners. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. I told you why I think it's silly to fire Ran Carthon if you're not going to fire everybody else. But now I want to tell you why I don't think the Titans should fire anyone anyways. And if they do, it shouldn't be Ran Carthon. It doesn't make any sense. At the end of the show, I'm going to tell you about if the Titans do fire Ran Carthon, though, what I think actually happens. at general manager, and that is a promotion from within, whether you want to hear it or not. But continuing forward here, again, if the Titans are going to fire Ran Carthon, you might as well fire Brian Callahan and Chad Brinker and everybody at the same time. But here's the truth. I don't think the Titans should fire anybody right now. Number one, look at the problems from this season. What are the big problems? All right. The big problems are quarterback play. All right. And I don't have a problem with taking a chance on Will Levis in the second round. Again, remember this. Ryan Tannehill was in his 30s and he looked done. So the Titans, with pick number 11, you're not going to be able to pick one of the top quarterbacks in the draft. That's not going to be an option for you. So what do you do instead? You take a chance on a second-round quarterback. I don't necessarily have a problem with that general philosophy, okay? They took a chance on Will Levis. See if you can catch lightning in a bottle. You didn't have a great way to fix your quarterback position after Ryan Tannehill, so we'll take a shot. I don't really mind that, but the truth is quarterback play was a major problem this year. Not only that, but the coaching. I hate to do this, but if we are going to fire somebody for doing a bad job this year, Brian Callahan deserves to be fired way before Ran Carthon. Ran Carthon got us Calvin Ridley. Ran Carthon got Tony Pollard. Ran Carthon drafted J.C. Latham. Ran Carthon drafted Tavondre Sweat. Ran Carthon drafted Peter Skoronski. Ran Carthon brought in Tajay Spears in the draft. Ran Carthon drafted Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Ran Carthon drafted James Williams, who's been a good special teams player in the second half of the year with potential to move forward as a linebacker as a 7th-round pick. Ran Carthon got Jalen Harrell. Ran Carthon brought in Bryce Oliver. Ran Carthon brought back Nick Folk. Ran Carthon brought in Lloyd Cushenberry, who had an injury. That's not Ran Carthon's fault that he popped his Achilles. It's not like a soft tissue injury where they brought in a guy who's always injured. Look, if you want to look at Ran Carthon, you could say he hired Brian Callahan. That was terrible. You could say that he traded for L'Jarius Sneed, and that hasn't worked out. But Quandre Diggs was playing good football when he got brought in, before he got injured with a broken foot, which again isn't like a soft tissue injury that's lingered all year. You get an injury-prone guy. So, has Ran Carthon been amazing? No, he hasn't been amazing. But we can't sit here and say out of Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker that the guy who's done the worst is Ran Carthon. So I don't even understand. I can't even fathom how Ran Carthon would be the guy who gets canned. Now, I try to be honest, and I did this yesterday. I try to look at it from Amy Adams Strunk's point of view. She is just another human being, a very rich human being, but just another human being like me and you. Ran Carthon picked the QB. He picked the head coach. He made me spend $250 million in free agency. And we were bad again. We were terrible. We were worst in the NFL, the worst team in the NFL. So I get from Amy Adams Strunk's point of view from that direction, and you could say, I'm firing Ran Carthon for all of that. But my problem comes back to, well, if you're firing the general manager because he hired a terrible coach, how can you not also fire the terrible coach? There is no logical path that has Ran Carthon getting fired and Brian Callahan keeping his job. That is not logical. If it happens, it's not logical. So, again, talking about what it looks like to fire Ran Carthon but keep Brian Callahan, talking about what it looks like to clean house entirely, I don't like either of those options. I simply don't. You clean house, I don't have faith that they're going to have the time and the resources. Amy's going to be paying Vrabel, going to be paying Callahan, and she's going to hire a new coach. Is that coach going to be worth anything, or is it just going to be the cheapest possible option they could find? Who's going to want to be the general manager after the Titans abandoned Ran Carthon after 2 seasons and fired Brian Callahan after 1? I just don't think that if the Titans fire everybody, that they have the resources and the time and the public relations view, the optics, as they call it. I don't think that things would be in their favor for them to fix the problem. you're just going to hire a general manager for cheap who's going into a bad situation, or a head coach for cheap who's going into a bad situation. And I just don't think that doing that is what sets the Titans on the path to get better. I also think that you have to take into consideration the new stadium. And you could say if you do this now, you get 2 more years of a new brain trust, and then you could fire him again in 2027's offseason before you go into the new stadium. But I don't think that's wise. I think you need to build up forward. I think that what we've seen from the Titans here, let's just be honest about the season for a second. What really went wrong this year? The turnovers, the special teams, and the quarterback play. It ruined everything. An improving offensive line. The Titans' offensive line was 11th in pass blocking efficiency from week 13 to week 18. Do not tell me that the Titans have a terrible offensive line, because they don't. They had a middle-of-the-road offensive line with a terrible right tackle position. That's what the Titans had this year. They had a mid-offensive line with the worst right tackle position in the NFL. That's what they had. So it's not like the offensive line was absolutely terrible. When Mason Rudolph played, the offensive line was fine. So quarterback play was a way bigger issue. And look, they tried with Will Levis. It didn't work. You got to give this coaching staff and this general manager one more year with the quarterback of their choice. One more year. And then they bring in a quarterback of their choice, which is why I don't want the Titans to draft a quarterback. Because if you let them pick their quarterback of choice and they make the wrong decision, now you're screwed with another rookie quarterback on a rookie contract. So don't fire anybody. Let them bring in a veteran quarterback and prove that they can win. And if they don't, then you move on after next year. You have 2026 and the 2027 offseason to build this thing up before the stadium opens. You let the new regime after this year bring in the young quarterback that they like in the 2026 or 2027 draft, which are much better for quarterbacks. This needs to go on for one more season. They need one more year before they clean house. And if you're going to fire Ran Carthon, just commit and fire Brian Callahan too and start completely over. But here's the thing. If the Titans do fire Ran Carthon, the guy who replaces him might already be in the building. We're going to talk about that right now. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, comedy. One of my favorite memories last year was attending a concert, Drake concert. It was awesome. And I got the tickets on Game Time. They make the energy and excitement unforgettable. Now, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. Recently, I was looking for tickets to an upcoming event using the Game Time app. Might have been a Titans game that I changed my mind on going to. But either way, with Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals, and you could even get a view from your seat before buying. The super deal was incredibly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, with the app's all-in pricing. If you toggle on the feature, you could see the cost of your tickets up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. I'll be honest with you, today's episode kind of feels like we're just waiting on news. Like, that's where I'm at. I'm just going through the possibilities here, my thoughts on the possibilities as we kind of wait for, is Ran Carthon going to be fired? Is Ran Carthon not going to be fired? Is he going to get one more year? Are there going to be any changes? Like, we're literally waiting for that news, and we don't know if we're going to get it now, later in the week, either way. But again, if the Titans fire Ran Carthon, you might as well clean house and fire Brian Callahan too. Although my personal opinion is you shouldn't do either of those things, and you should give this group one more year and make them get a veteran quarterback to bring in to prove that they can win. All right. That's because if they get a rookie quarterback, they give you the same excuse of, oh, it's a young quarterback. We got to build him. We got to get him back. No, I want to see a veteran quarterback in here and see if Brian Callahan can actually win some games. That's what I want to see. Can Ran Carthon deliver a veteran quarterback? And then if it doesn't work in 2025, you fire both of them and you restart over. That's why I want the Titans to trade back in the draft and build the roster, because I don't trust this group to pick a quarterback. Period. No doubt about it. Do not trust Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon to pick a new quarterback. But let me just say this. If Ran Carthon is fired, and put on my tinfoil hat for you guys here, I think that Chad Brinker, the Tennessee Titans president of football operations, would assume the general manager position. Now, Ran Carthon is GM. Chad Brinker is president of football operations. They are equals. But I think it would be Chad Brinker taking over the general manager job of Ran Carthon. So remember, Chad Brinker was incredibly well respected as a scout on the business side, talking about the money and the salary cap and all of that. And he's a former player who's in scouting. So Chad Brinker knows the business side, knows the analytics side, knows the football side. He was well respected in Green Bay. Green Bay had to stop him from going to other places because he was so well respected around the league. And he even went back to school in a doctorate program at Northwestern, I believe it was. We talked about it last year or the year before when Brinker was officially hired. Last year, yeah. But the point is, Brinker is a super intelligent human being. He knows every level of football operation, and he's already somebody in the building who maybe Amy Adams Strunk trusts. You have to think to yourself, Amy Adams Strunk knows football better than your average person. You know, she's been owning a football team and watching football and being involved in the discussions for years and years. She knows football better than your average person. But Amy Adams Strunk isn't, Greg Cosell. It's not like she is, a football lifer. So when Ran Carthon does something and she's unsure about whether that's a good idea or not, who does she ask? Who does Amy Adams Strunk get her football advice from when she wants to ask questions about the job her general manager has done? Who is that person? That's one of the biggest questions in the Tennessee Titans universe, is who does Amy Adams Strunk ask for advice on high-level football decisions? The answer to that question may be terrifying, quite honestly. But we don't know. We don't know the answer. So I am going to take a shot in the dark, take a guess. I think that Amy Adams Strunk might be going to Chad Brinker saying, hey, do you think the move that Ran made was the right move? Did you agree with him? Does your data support that? Would you have made that decision? And what if Chad Brinker is like, no, honestly, I didn't agree. Chad, would you have traded for L'Jarius Sneed? No, I didn't really agree with that. Chad, would you have drafted Will Levis? No, I didn't really agree with that. Chad, would you have hired Brian Callahan? No, I really didn't agree with that. We don't know whether Chad Brinker agrees or disagrees with what Ran Carthon is doing. We don't know. And remember, Amy Adams Strunk made them equals this offseason. Made them equals. So she already doesn't view Chad Brinker as an underling of Ran Carthon. She views him as equals. So I am just putting a theory out there, taking a guess that if Ran Carthon did get fired and Brian Callahan didn't, that it wouldn't be some huge change. It would be, we are firing Ran Carthon and we are promoting Chad Brinker. That's what I think happens if Ran Carthon gets fired. But again, I don't want the Titans to fire Ran Carthon. And if they did, I think they should just clean house entirely, not promote Chad Brinker. But what I think will happen, what I want to happen, what could happen, all different things, of course. But let me know what you want to happen with the Tennessee Titans future. Should they fire Ran Carthon? Should they fire Chad Brinker? Should they fire Brian Callahan? What combination would you want to see them fired in? Either way, let me know down below or hit me up on Twitter at TicTacTitans as well. But that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked on Titans. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland. And again, this was Locked on Titans.